TCK Potters, I'm your host, Sky Guasco. This is episode 194 of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. Bring it back to continue our series on the incoming rookies for the NFL Draft coming up tomorrow. Can't believe the NFL Draft is actually here already. We are joined once again by Jonathan Rifkind and always Lukas. Today we are breaking down the wide receivers. Before we get into that, Jonathan, great to have you back, my man. Please reintroduce yourself to our audience and let's get into it.
Always happy to be here, Sky. Appreciate the opportunity as always. Lukas, you too. Pac-12 podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, sports broadcaster in the greater Southern California area, specializing in both high school and college sports. But my expertise sort of wanes into the NFL level just because I pay so much attention to what happens at the amateur levels as well. So I'm going to do my best to contribute what I can here to this podcast.
Excellent. And I mentioned in previous podcasts with you, obviously you were in here last year for this same similar breakdown, but I really appreciate your perspective because you do work at the high school level as well. Now, obviously we don't talk about high school kids here on the podcast or in fantasy football. However, it matters when you pay attention to these kids from sophomore year, junior, senior year of high school into college, how they develop that way, and then, of course, into the pros. So, again, you have a very unique perspective that not a lot of people in the space have, in that you have an idea of these kids for a good 6-8 year chunk sometimes of what you actually diagnose. So I appreciate that. Lukas, always great to have you in as well, my man. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. This is my favorite position to break down, I think. I came to that consensus, I think, this year, just sort of in the overall, I guess, scouting, if you want to call it scouting process of this class.
Excellent. We got a lot of them to cover. We did the quarterbacks and running backs yesterday, of course, wide receivers today, tight ends tomorrow, in the NFL draft tomorrow, the teledraft. We'll see how that actually breaks down. But we got a lot of names to cover, guys. We're going to do our best to blaze through these quick as we can to not have a super long episode, but I'll just preface it early that this one might be a little extended. So it is a podcast. You're welcome to pause and come back to it, but we're going to do our best to bring you the best content we possibly can as well. Make sure to subscribe right now to the YouTube channel and leave a rate and review anywhere you listen to your podcast. All right, boys, let's dive right into it here. Pretty much the consensus up here at the top is some version of CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, and Henry Ruggs. Lukas, we'll start with you really quick. We're not doing a rankings per se here, but how would you list these guys personally? And why don't you pick one to dive into, and then we'll turn over to Riff.
Yep. So all my rankings, my top four is in this order: Lamb, Jeudy, Jefferson, Ruggs. It was that before the combine. It is that now. Obviously, after the combine, we'll revisit that post NFL draft. I can't imagine it's going to change a whole lot. I mean, we can probably break down Lamb and Jeudy together. Alpha's on their team in college, Oklahoma, Alabama. They're going to be drafted to be most likely given maybe one or two spots, Alpha or 1B receivers in the NFL. All their measurables are good. All their production's good. I think it'll just come down to how good of a situation do they land in to predict who the number one is in this class. I think I just like Lamb a little better. I think we're not going to go break down who's better between Bama and Oklahoma. Maybe who they played it was better, but I think his ability to create plays a little better, I think, just stood out to me compared to Jerry Jeudy. Not that he had to make more plays because Oklahoma was a good football team, but I think that he's just a little more creative when he has the ball in his hands. But Judy's still just as good to me. So they're like my 1A, 1B, but obviously I have to give him a 1 and 2 ranking. But I think they could easily flop just based on best landing spot post NFL draft.
Riff?
I have Lamb, Jeudy, Jefferson, Ruggs. I have a crazy hot take that I will bring up later because I don't want to be accused of being a Pac-12 homer just yet in where we are in the podcast, but we'll get there. But yeah, I mean, I have no spat with what Lukas just said, so we can go ahead and break down these guys.
Excellent, great. So there's a lot, obviously, the majority of content in any fantasy circle or NFL draft combine recap is on these four guys particular. So there's a lot out there. There's not much we're going to say that you haven't heard already. So I did want to get both of your takes, obviously, but Lukas spends a lot of time behind the scenes breaking every position down, as you know, with the rookie draft guide coming up at the end of the month that you all are well aware of at this point, but just the analytics and the stats. So want to make sure we're taking that into consideration. Okay, so some version of Lamb, Jeudy, Jefferson, and Ruggs as the top four guys. Really quick, before we move on from these guys, Where let's do this. We have no say in where these guys land. We can't really predict it because the NFL draft is insane every year. So let's have a little bit of fun. Lukas, we'll start with you. Where do you want each one of these receivers to land?
Where do I want? Oh, so for once, I think I want Lamb on the Raiders. I think that'd just be fun. A lot of opportunity there. Maybe is that going to be good fantasy opportunity? Well, that'll be a whole different podcast or however we're going to break that down. Judy, I don't really know because I was kind of. I guess I'll go to the other ones. Ruggs, I want him on the Broncos. Not that I think he's a really good one. He's a good receiver, but not that he would be a higher fantasy receiver. I think it would just help the Broncos in general with how they want to run that offense. Jefferson, I want either on the Eagles or the Vikings just to eat up targets. I really like him. As much as I want to put him at my number one, I know that I probably can't because he's really good in what he does, but it's not what CeeDee Lamb and Judy can do. So I'd say Eagles or Vikings, and I don't know. Judy's tough because he's been mocked right around the Jets. That's his famous landing spot. I think the Chargers is something that's interesting. If they do pick at 6 and they don't want to go quarterback, I think they could maybe go for a guy like Judy. We've seen crazier things happen, and there was a report 2 days, well, I guess as you're hearing this a couple days ago, that mock drafts have been completely wrong, that it's going to be crazy. No one knows it's actually going to happen. So I think we could see a guy like him go super high. If he goes to the Chargers with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, I think they could definitely do some damage. That'd be my best absolute landing spot that I'd want him to go.
Riff, how about you, bro?
Yeah, Lamb to Vegas would be sick. Jefferson, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Indianapolis would be sick. I don't know if Indy will be able to get that pick. Ruggs. My only thing about something you need a quarterback. Do you really trust whoever Denver decides to put at quarterback to make Ruggs productive? Right. That's my problem. Denver's cool. I think Indiana's another good spot for him for Ruggs. I want Jerry Jeudy to go to Tampa Bay. I want him to go to Tampa Bay so bad. Put him on the other side of Mike Evans. Let TV. They get Eno Benjamin in their next pick. You get your dump down back, and then you got 2. And then maybe we'll see what happens with OJ Howard. But I mean, that's just such a target to line on the other side. So I think that would be the most fun place that we could see him go. Whether or not he actually are there, I think the Chargers. Again, we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. Are they going to draft Herbert? Are they going to trade up to draft Herbert? Are they going to trade up to draft Tua? I don't know. Also, if they do you really trust them to be able to make one of these wide receivers productive? And also, will they even be in a position to take one of these wide receivers if they are indeed taking a quarterback? So there's a lot of different variables that go into where these guys land for me. But overall, with the exception of Judy going to Tampa Bay, I completely agree with you on the other 3 and their potential landing spots, Lukas.
So what I'm hearing you say is none of these guys will end up in San Francisco.
I don't think they're going to take one. I think – because I'm trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and I'm gonna make a final mock draft before the draft. They don't have a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round pick, so they really have to think they
2 in the first.
Yeah, they really have to think they need a receiver if they want to spend one on. It'd be 13 if they want to get a top guy. Jefferson would probably he's mocked to the Eagles. I don't even know if he's gonna be there. The Broncos could easily be where he goes if all these guys are gone at 15, wherever it's at. I don't know. It's more so me not being super high on Denzel Mims and Jalen Reagor for the Niners to believe in that, but they still have Jalen Hurd. They still have Kendrick Bourne. I'm gonna throw in Dante Pettis in that group because he could easily whatever. I don't know. We've talked about it before. We don't really know what happened. I just think not that they have other needs. That's just not how they run their offense. I don't know if they're gonna. If you draft a guy like Judy, he's gonna expect a 25+% market share. And then you have to take away from Kittle, from Deebo Samuel. You still have Jalen Hurd coming back, like I said. I think people don't realize how much of a role in that offense he's going to play. He was he was literally Deebo Samuel. They were going to have 2 Deebo Samuels on the offense. He just got hurt. So I don't know. I don't think one's going to land there personally to me.
Cool. Fair enough. I think my realistic 49er receiver is actually in the 2nd tier that we'll get into here. So the top tier, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, Henry Ruggs, no real surprises there. Let's dive into the 2nd tier here. Jalen Reagor, T. Higgins, Laviska Shenault, Denzel Mims, Michael Pittman Jr. Jonathan, we'll let you kick it off this time.
Okay, so of the tier 2 wide receivers, Michael Pittman Jr. is my favorite. This is a perfect segue because I think he's going to go to San Francisco. I want him to go to San Francisco. I think you should want him to go to San Francisco. This guy is a possession wide receiver machine. Talk about guys, you alluded to how I'm in the high school scene. So this guy, from where I sit right now, his high school is about 5 minutes from where I am. Oak Christian High School. Shout out to the Lions. Michael Pittman Jr. was the top wide receiver in California. For some reason, decided to go to USC and through one okay year of Kessler, a decent year, and then a very bad start for JT Daniels, and then bailing out Keaton Slovis every single game this year, including the Stanford game where Michael Pittman Jr. should have been the reason that people focused on why they won that game and not Keaton Slovis. This guy's a monster. This guy is the most NFL-ready wide receiver of any of the tier 2s, in my opinion. I think T. Higgins is probably the next closest one. But man, I love it. I don't really see much downside. Like, yeah, he's not the fastest guy, but I think for his size, he's a lot faster than people realize. He can create space. I read a critique that he's not explosive. I strongly disagree. Go look at like explosive catchability, whatever you want to call it. Strongly disagree. We can go look at highlights. We can get into that. But for the sake of fluidity, I'm not going to get into that too much. But yeah, Pittman's my favorite. Higgins number 2. Probably Chenault 3, just because of what he was able to do with Steven Montez as his quarterback. Montez, everybody says, to go late, maybe 6th or 7th round in the NFL draft. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. I don't think that system was very good, and yet Laviska Chenault was phenomenal. And I think that just speaks to who he is, who he can be in the NFL. And then I have Denzel Mims and Jalen Reagor up in the rear. Probably Reagor a little bit better, a little bit higher than Mims in my rankings.
All right. As far as Michael Pittman goes, he is huge, 6'4", 223, 89th percentile catch radius. So certainly something that the 49ers can use with the big body. Love Kittle, obviously. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be awesome. But Debo is a beast when he gets the ball, but more of maybe a slot over the middle guy, less of a prototypical number 1 per se. So that could be a nice fit there. For his speed, a 4.5 40-yard dash, which is awesome for his size, as you mentioned. So I think 93rd percentile speed adjusted score, I think is great for Michael Pittman. So a nice, not quite a sleeper by any means, but in the second tier, he was the last name on the list that I have here, and he's at the top of your area though. So maybe that fifth receiver maybe in your rankings, if you will, behind the big four there. So nice pickup on him. Lukas, we'll turn to you. Who's maybe your favorite out of this group? Reagor, Higgins, Chenault, Mims, and Pittman, and how do you have the rest of these guys ranked out?
Yeah, I'll kind of just so my rankings in terms of just as that group, I have Reagor over Higgins. I don't know. I'm still kind of torn on this group because it's tough. Reagor has the most, I think, upside just in terms of like athletic ability that he brings into this. He played with TCU. They brought in a transfer quarterback. I want to say at Texas Tech. I don't remember where they brought him in, but then ultimately Max Duggan, who I actually played against in high school too. Kind of I don't know, just a cool little fact there. He took over as TCU's quarterback. People said he sucked. Like, yeah, he was bad. Okay, but he's a true freshman quarterback playing in the Big 12. Big 12 defenses might not be that good, but just the pressure of that I can imagine. So he'll have room for growth. But ultimately, Reagor took the fall for that. I think if Reagor had good production, like a Ruggs or Jefferson, he would be in that top tier just because he's so athletic. So I think they're close. Higgins, I've started to grow on him a lot. I think people are kind of falling down just because he didn't run at the combine, but neither did J.K. Dobbins, and everyone seems to like him. So I don't know where that sort of correlates. Higgins' ability to just he's just a route, I don't want to say a good route runner, like a route genius. Like the way he just runs all the routes is exactly what you need at the next level to create space. He stacks the corner fantastically. He's just he just seems like it's smooth. The numbers were there, but they weren't there to what you'd expect for the wide receiver 1 at Clemson, but he's just an NFL ready receiver. Chenault's tough because his ultimate comp's Deebo Samuel. I hate when people just throw that comp out there just because he gets the ball and handoffs and stuff, but he's super efficient in the short game. His downfield game was not that great in terms of just jump balls, whatever the reason is. Steven Montez, Colorado offense, different aspects play into that. Mims tested through the roof but didn't show anything on film, and apparently he played with a broken hand his junior year. just like apparently Julian Edelman broke his ribs the whole year after the season was done. So I'm not gonna buy into that too much. And then Pittman, he's just a freak. Like his size speed combo with the problem with Pittman is I think like his size, his speed is there. His film was just like good enough to be like a second round pick. Where I think if like maybe he had the film of like a Rager or Chenault, in terms of like just like a highlight reel, I think he might be higher. So this is a group that I think this group proves why you don't need to take a receiver in the first round, because there's I don't even want to say less of a ceiling, but there's still good competent or wide receivers in this class. So that is why, like with the Niners, I think they should trade back, acquire a second, and then go get whoever they want out of this group.
Quality value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, throughout. Yeah, I agree with you. My guy actually, and Michael Pittman, I think, Jonathan, I think that'd be great. Again, prototypical number one. We just broke him down. I think he'd be an excellent fit for the 49ers specifically. I also, T. Higgins is my dog. Clemson receivers in general, man. I mean, Sammy Watkins, Nuke Hopkins, Mike Williams, the list goes on and on of Clemson receivers. They're just beasts, all of them. Love T. Higgins. For a while, I've been kind of excited about his opportunity at the professional level in general, but now the 49ers, I think, again, could find some value with him later on, potentially where these bigger names are probably going to go ahead of them. So that could be an opportunity there. Lukas, I agree with you. They should get some value in the second round there. Jonathan, take it away.
Yeah, can I touch on T. Higgins real quick? So I love Clemson, man. I love Dabo. I love the program. They don't allow transfers, which is a phenomenal philosophy that you never see at a Power 5 level. But where T. Higgins struggled this season was against teams with good defensive backs. Like the ACC ranked 5 out of 5 of Power 5 defensive back ratings. Like their efficiency in the secondary was really low, right? Like the offense in the ACC was exaggerated because the secondary was so weak. So I think that he benefited in conference from that aspect. You're not going to get that in the NFL. Like the conversation that we had in the running backs podcast was, well, in the NFL, even the worst player is still better than probably the best in college. But when it comes to something like this, when it comes to competition, he has not faced competition consistently like he did or like he will in the NFL. Ohio State, 4 for 33. That's what he put up against LSU in the national championship game, 3 for 52. These are NFL caliber defenses that he struggled to produce against. And so for me, I just want to see what he can do. We know the skills are there, but it's whether or not it translates against the best of the best. So that's my only question with him. I agree, though. I think as far as skill goes, like this guy might actually have the most skill of any wide receiver in the draft.
Yeah,
the
only thing with that, like I get the argument. I think it's what a lot of people are making. Is I went back and watched like the LSU game. There was a touchdown play that he got offensive pass interference. He didn't even put up his hands on the guy. Whatever, it's a completely different conversation. 40-yard touchdown got called back. So take that away from his stat line. In that game, he was messed. Like Fulton stood no chance in that game of covering him in terms of just like every single route. He stacked him on every play, had the separation. Trevor Lawrence really wasn't like he was accurate, but like he actually wasn't that good this year. When you look at like every single throw he made, the balls weren't right there. I don't think I'd be able to throw a pass against LSU's pass rush last year, just how good it was. So maybe it's just a lack of pocket percentage of pocket.
Can I disagree with you? I think that he's the best quarterback in next year's draft.
Oh,
I think that he was really good. I think that he was undervalued this year from our perspective, like from a media perspective, just because Clemson didn't perform the way that we expected them to perform. Like I still think he was like a top 5 quarterback in the nation. And so I don't know. We haven't really disagreed, Lukas. So I'm going to disagree with you here. I think that T. Higgins, like I think that the argument holds just because like it's Clemson. Like that's just how they can. Travis Etienne, like they had all the offensive pieces to be successful, and they were successful. But T. Higgins seemed to be like, as far as like the 3 playmakers that they had went out of the backfield, their quarterback and the wide receiver, it just felt like T. Higgins in the big spots didn't produce compared to the other 2 guys.
Yeah, that's true. You'd think like a guy that big would like, I don't want to say take over, because like how much can you take over on like Derek Stingy and Christian Fulton? But yeah, there's definitely like an underwhelming factor. I just feel like maybe it's being like blown out of proportion, maybe in terms of the overall grade. Because if everyone's super high on Rager for not like producing, I don't know. Like I guess it just like kind of goes both ways with every single prospect.
Fair enough.
I guess I don't know. That's why it's tough to. That's why no one's rankings are completely right or players are undervalued, overvalued for sure.
And that's why wide receivers are such a shit show when it comes to drafting, is because all these guys, like, we'll get into like last year I said, like, N'Keal Harry was one of my picks that nobody's going to really think about. And like this is just wide receivers. It's such a crapshoot when it comes to these guys, and they can come from anywhere, and they could be successful from the worst schools, or they could be unsuccessful from the best schools.
Lukas, we'll start with you. Where would you like to see these 5 fall in the draft?
I think Rager's best spot would be the Packers. I don't want them to take him at 30, but I think that he is not a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. I think he's just, if he paired him with Devontae Adams, I think it'd just work. Just the dynamic of the offense. You'd have a speedster guy, just a 5 to 6 target a game, but can ultimately go for like 3 catches and 150 yards type receiver. Higgins, I had Texans down before they made the awesome trade for Brandon Cooks, but not anymore because they're not going to draft one. I think the Niners would be good. I think, I think any team could benefit if his ceiling is touched. The Chenault, I don't know. I think the Eagles would be okay if they got him in round 2 or 3, because I think he is going to fall, which he had surgery. I don't know the extent of how that will go. I think that the Eagles would be good just because they need to rework whatever the hell is going on there in that wide receiver room. Give him 5-6 touches in the backfield at screens, whatever you need to do there. Mims, I don't know, because I think he's gonna get overdrafted. Teams are just gonna buy into his combine production. Colts, maybe. I think that'd be a decent spot for him. I don't know. He's the one that I don't really know. And then Pittman, I'm going to have to do double Colts there. I think Pittman to the Colts would be awesome. You got him, T.Y., Zach Pascal, Paris Campbell. I think that'd be fun.
Riff?
Rager, I agree. I think would be fun in Green Bay. I think he'd be fun with the Chargers too. On the other side of Keenan Allen. T. Higgins, I think Indianapolis would be a really good spot for him. Chenault, I think the 4th round pick that the Ravens have, if for some, like you said, he's going to drop. And because he had surgery on like an abdominal muscle. Like, this dude just lifts a shit ton. So like, that's what happens sometimes.
He's a beast. So he had surgery.
Right, so I think it'd be fun to see him in Baltimore. He would be a good offset to some of the pieces that they have there. Mims in Indiana, I like. And then Pittman Jr., 49ers. Please, I will honestly see him on that. To be honest with you, Sky, I like to brown nose with you a little bit because you're the host and you give me this opportunity, but I don't like the 49ers very much. Like, I just, from like a LA born perspective, you're just born to hate Northern California in general.
Sure.
But I want to see Michael Pittman on the 49ers. I'm a big Michael Pittman guy, so I think he would do really well there.
Well, the love-hate is mutual. I mean, I was born and raised to not like LA. That's just how it goes, dude.
Let me ease you a little bit. I'm a Celtic and Red Sox fan. I'm not a Patriot fan.
Deal.
So you can hate the LA sports. Like, that doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah, but see, it's funny. Like, I've gone into this a lot in the early days. I don't talk about it anymore. But my original 2 co-hosts, Daniel and Curly, were all Candlestick kids, right? That comes from the 49ers and the Giant Stadium of the OG in San Francisco, where all of us grew up going to ball games. That's how the podcast got started, yada, yada. So we all grew up in the Bay. So it's like anti-Dodgers, anti-Lakers, anti-Rams, all the things, whatever. But as I get old and mature, the games have changed. I don't want to dial back the clock too much and kill time. But, I'm 33, right? So growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, the 90s was still a time where you had players in every sport who were on that team for their whole fucking career, which for me is a nostalgic big deal. It was really, really cool because you think of a player as that team's guy. 2000s started to fade out now. I mean, you're lucky if you get a dude for 5 years in any sport, especially the NBA, right? Even baseball. So my venom for the LA teams has dwindled very quickly because it's less about the organization and it's more like, do I not like a player? Well, now that guy's on like the White Sox. So, who gives a shit? So that's just kind of a funny thing with like the rivalry in sports now where I've grown out of that. Like, I don't like the Dodgers. It's like, I don't root for them because of the Dodgers and I'm not supposed to. But at the same time, it's like, I don't really give a shit. I like players on the Dodgers now. So what do I do? So I think that's a kind of an interesting perspective nowadays. All right, cool. I appreciate that. Let's jump into our third tier here, and that's KJ Hamler, Brandon Ayuk, Lynn Bowden Jr., and Devin Duvernay. I think all these guys are interesting. I definitely want to hear the take specifically on Brandon Ayuk, but let's kick it off here. Jonathan, why don't we kick it back to you here again? And again, who's your favorite prospect out of this group, and a quick synopsis on each guy if you have one, and then maybe where do you think they would each land?
Yeah, I think Hamler's my number. No, I think I'm going to be confident here. Hamler is my number one from Penn State for sure. We saw what they did. I watched most of their games in capacity, not totally, but there was one game where I watched the entire thing, and even just like when he wasn't involved when his number wasn't called on a pass, like he was still productive in a way. Whether it was like those off-ball screens where like they're not legal, but like you still get away with it. Like he was very good at those. He was very good at just opening up the middle of the field for other playmakers. So I really love his awareness. I think people don't understand, like when you could be placed all over the field as a wide receiver, like you have to be able to understand like spatial awareness, because where you are in the field in comparison to where all your other teammates are is important. And when you're being moved around the line, that spatial awareness shifts. And like this guy played all over the field for Penn State. He was always productive. And so I just, from that perspective alone, like that puts him above most of these guys, even in like the tier 1 and 2 classes, just from IQ. But from a athletic standpoint, Penn State has always been a pretty proven producer of skill players. And I don't know why he's any exception to that rule. He had a good season. He had a great season for a team that was underwhelming offensively and just in general, especially with their offensive line. It was, I mean, look, you don't have Saquon Barkley anymore, but it is what it is. So he's my number one. I think Devin Duvernay from Texas is my number 2. He's underrated. I think Sam Ehlinger was terrible. And when you have a terrible quarterback and you're a pretty good wide receiver, you're probably a lot better than the numbers show or the highlight tape shows. And so I don't like giving out like the benefit of the doubt typically, because I think we sensationalize most of these guys anyways. And like in a year, we forget about like 92% of the people that we talk about. But I don't think he's like that. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. So he's my number 2. Ayuk is my number 3. I know he only played 1 year at ASU. Jaden Daniels is going to be the best Pac-12 quarterback in the next 2 seasons. I think he's going to be a Heisman runner-up by the time he's a senior, and probably a top 5 pick when he enters the NFL. So Brandon Ayuk is the product of phenomenal system at Arizona State, but he is the skills to be a quality NFL receiver. So I'm at my 4 or at my 3, and then I actually don't like Lynn Bowden Jr. that much. Like I don't think that I get why he's in this class, but I think like guys like Tyler Johnson, Isaiah Hodgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones are going to be much more productive wide receivers at the next level. So of this group, Bowden Jr. is my 4, but I actually have him much lower on my list overall.
Lukas?
I'm going to add in one guy too, Brian Edwards. We forgot to put him in here out of South Carolina. He just got hurt like prior to the combine, so he just, like, no one's going to be talking about him in the first probably 3 rounds just because he got hurt. I'm just going to kind of break it down, I guess, how I kind of view these guys. So Hamler, he is going to have a very fun career in the NFL, like a Will Fuller type career. I don't know about injuries. I don't know his history, but he's just a player that, like, if you watched the Iowa game last year, like, it was just like, how does a guy at 5'11", 178 make plays like that? He plays completely out of his size. He plays like a wide receiver 1, so he'll be very fun. I mean, like you said, they produce receivers. Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, look at them now. They were extremely undervalued, and then they come into the league and they just produce with Blake Bortles. I mean, I'm going to say Jameis Winston because he's not really that good of a quarterback, but it works for what he does. So I think he'll have a very fun career. He's like the ultimate like Broncos draft I want would be like an offensive tackle, and then like him instead of Ruggs in round 1, like Hamler in round 2, because I think that'd work just as well and benefit the team even more. Ayuk, I'm not like, I don't know. I'm not going to like compare him to N'Keal Harry, but like the whole N'Keal Harry thing last year, like it just didn't work out. Ayuk is like, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's basically a running back, just the way he runs with the ball. Like it's very kind of like Chenault. It just works. I don't know how well that's going to translate over. I don't know. I have him as like my wide receiver 10 or 9 in this class. 11 actually. So I don't know, like he could easily rise. He's been getting a lot of like first round grades from some teams apparently. Some teams apparently really liked him compared to N'Keal Harry, which is crazy to me because N'Keal Harry was like a round 1 grade, and then in all mock drafts, Ayuk's going like round 3, so like that doesn't really add up to me. But believe whatever draft hype you will, I guess you could say. Lynn Bowden, he'll only be fun and exciting if he goes to like a select group of like 4 or 5 teams that I can kind of think of, which we'll break down after. Played quarterback, played running back, played receiver at Kentucky. Just a really fun college player. Not that he's like Tim Tebow, but I feel like that's kind of like what you could kind of think of. Maybe his college career, his NFL career is like 1 or 2 seasons of just like he gets a chance and does well. But he's really fun. And then Duvernay, yeah, he ran a 4.39 40 at the combine. He's just super fast. He's 220 some pounds, built like a running back, like Chenault is. He basically told Colin Johnson like, "Hey, I'm the wide receiver 1 this year." Colin Johnson was supposed to be like this like first round NFL pick. His wide receiver room, and then Brandon Eagles and Devin Duvernay completely took over. If you want to watch, I was actually doing his write-up today. Like, there wasn't like one game that was like, his whole season was good. Like LSU had a really good game. Oklahoma, I think he had like 3 touchdowns. So he just had a really good year. And then Brian Edwards out of South Carolina. He is the analytics like centerpiece, you could say. He breakout edge. I know we've talked about it before, but it's just when you eclipse greater than 20% of your team, your total team's receiving yards and touchdowns, or if you're a running back, rushing yards and touchdowns. But Brian Edwards broke out at age like 17.6, which is like the 99th percentile. So if you're like a huge, like you only draft or evaluate guys based off numbers or those analytics, he's the guy. I think he has a lot of upside, primarily due to because he's going to go later in the or later in the draft now just because he got hurt. So like he'll be on a short-term contract. The team will keep him around. It just kind of like evens out, I think, to his upside. But I think in terms of rankings, it's tough because they all play kind of different. I think Ayuk could have the better career if he just comes into like that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1B role. Hamler and Duvernay, they're both going to have fun careers. Bowden, if he lands on like the perfect fit, could easily be something really exciting. And then Edwards, we just got to kind of see with the medicals.
Yeah, like KJ Hamler, you mentioned. I was gonna make a mention, but you got it taken care of with Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson. You think of Penn State and the Big Ten in general as a run first, play defense conference. Saquon Barkley, obviously Miles Sanders, but both those guys were great, and KJ Hamler now too. I like him a lot. Brandon Ayuk was interesting. I wanted to hear about it just because he's a JUCO transfer, and really didn't get max production until his senior year. So, having a late breakout, is sometimes not beneficial for these receivers coming into the NFL. And then Duvernay, again, love him, 4.3, 40-yard dash in the 95 percentile plus. He's a big target there. So love those guys. I think that's a great connection. Lukas, why don't you continue here and break down who you think, who would you like to see these players fall to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Edwards, I think the Colts, I know I have a lot of Colts, but I think they're going to get one of these like second.
They got to get somebody.
Yeah, so I think that he'd be fun just because they could get him in like the 4th round. He wouldn't even have to play this year because they don't need a receiver to play this year, but like long term they need a receiver with T.Y. ultimately out the door, and Campbell's not a wide receiver 1. So I think Edwards there. Duvernay, I don't even know for him. Bowden, I think the Saints would be like my ultimate spot because I don't want to like, I know we talked about like a team switching to what like the Ravens do. The Saints could easily, when Breeze retires, switch to what the Ravens do and just run read options and RPOs with Taysom Hill, Lynn Bowden, Kamara. I know that's like a far stretch, but I think that'd be fun. Him on the Bears would be fun. Because, I don't want to say he's a better quarterback than Trubisky and Nick Foles, but, it probably wouldn't take much to be the level they are. Ayuk, I don't know. I think, like, the Ravens could be fun, too. I know we had him going to, or Chenault kind of going there, but he kind of is like a wide receiver 1, but he's like, you wouldn't need him to be. And he's like a running back with the ball in his hands, I said. Hamler, I think Broncos or the Bears is probably another one. I think it's a little more realistic. They need something with Allen Robinson. They have Anthony Miller, but he's a wide receiver 3 at best. I think the Bears would be fun. Duvernay, I don't know. I'd say to say Bears. They need some type of downfield stretcher to add to that offense. So I think that'd be a good fit.
Riff, where do you think these guys are falling? Or where would you like them to fall? How about that?
Yeah. I don't know. Lukas has been really good with the list so far. Yeah, I think Hamler.
You can
Chicago,
second them.
yeah, there are some. There's some. I think Hamler. Man, you just got to figure out the quarterback situation. I want all of these guys to be successful, but I'm not going to be like, I want Hamler to go to Chicago because I don't want his career to be over as soon as he gets drafted. Yeah. So that's my struggle. Like Denver, Chicago is great, but who the fuck is throwing him the football? So that's my struggle with those two. Those are the two best places for him to go if they can figure out the quarterback situation. Hamler in Vegas would be interesting. But I think Brandon Ayuk in Vegas, that would be fun, right? The dude from Nevada, he's from Reno. He went to Sierra College, which is Northern Nevada community college. It would be cool to see him go to Vegas. It's not the hometown boy, obviously, but the state hero, if you will. You don't hear many Nevadians who can go back to the state at the professional level. So unless you're in hockey, and who cares about that? So so I guess you're from the Midwest. So I guess you care a little bit more about hockey than we do out here, Lucas. But
sure.
I don't know about Iowa. In Iowa, they care about hockey. But anyway, so Ayuk to Vegas would be cool. Bowden Jr. Yeah, New Orleans. I think he would be he's the guy who's going to take pressure off, like, your wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. I could see him in Houston also. Devin DuVernay. That's a tough one. Rams. I could see him going to the Rams. Again, I don't know how much you trust Goff, but obviously they're reworking his contract to be able to, number 1, keep him, and number 2, try to get some more pieces. So yeah, I'd see DuVernay on the Rams, and then Edwards. I like that you added him. I have a special place for South Carolina in my heart just because I love the Helinski family. I actually know them personally. Obviously, we know about Tyler Helinski at Washington State. His brother Ryan Helinski is the quarterback out South Carolina. Shout out to Orange Lutheran High School just down the street here in Orange County. But yeah, I think Indiana for Edwards would be phenomenal. He's just a big chiseled man. Like, you can kind of fit him anywhere. He's kind of like a tier below what Michael Pittman will probably end up being, in my opinion. So yeah, I think Indiana would be a solid landing spot for him.
I'm glad that you finally brought up the Rams. I was going to see how long it had lasted because obviously they do have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, but they lose Todd Gurley. They lose Brandon Cooks, obviously, and 2 years. Last year was a shit show. They just didn't know what to do when everybody exposed them, and when the Patriots exposed them in the Super Bowl, they couldn't bounce back properly, and Goff just isn't effective under pressure. But 2 years ago, when they were the greatest show on grass, they were crushing it with 3 receivers constantly. So I think to have a third option there. Personally, I'm a Josh Reynolds guy. I don't know if anybody even knows who the fuck Josh Reynolds is, but I think he's awesome. And in his limited time, when one of those receivers goes down in the last 2 years, he's been awesome, quite effective. He's definitely a dynasty grab for me, for sure, in all drafts, just because. But I think picking them up. And also Minnesota. With Diggs moving on to Buffalo, they're going to need to fill that slot. BC Johnson's not terrible, but Thielen may only be there for another year or two as well. So I think Minnesota's going to need some help with one of these guys as well.
Did Reynolds play at A&M with Manziel? Was he the other receiver on that team?
I think Evans? So.
Yeah,
I think so. I'd have to do some. I don't have the numbers in my head, but I think those add up.
That team was disgusting. But that's a good example of a college guy who, like, a great college career, he's like he's in the NFL because he has skills, but like that's like a good example of a really good college. Like, he's a 4th round pick. Like, most of the guys that we're talking about are going to end up probably being like Josh Reynolds.
Sure, just a guy who's been waiting his opportunity, and I think he's made the most of limited exposure. But if he's able to do it, I think he'd be just fine as a third option for the Rams. Not a huge producer per se in fantasy, but again, Cooper Kupp was out an entire season and a half recently. Robert Woods has been nicked up here and there. So if any of those guys go down and Reynolds can stay healthy, I think they'd be just fine. While we're talking about hometown guys, Jared Goff's from my hometown. He actually went to, I'm 10 years older than him pretty much, so we definitely didn't play each other in high school or anything, but he went to our rival high school back in the Bay Area, Marin Catholic. I went to Novato High School for anybody back home in the Bay. All right, let's move on to kind of our 4th, 5th final tier, some of these deeper names here. Got a lot of guys that we could mention. We've already kind of mentioned a couple of these guys, so I'm going to turn you guys loose a little bit here, more of a free form on this last grouping here. Couple guys here, Tyler Johnson, Antonio Gandy Golden, I know we want to talk about, but Darnell Mooney, Isaiah Hodgins, Colin Johnson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, James Prochet, and KJ Hill. And if there's anybody else deeper down this list, feel free. Lukas, why don't we kick it off here with you? Feel free to pick through this list on who you'd like to go with, and we'll carry on.
Yep. So I have two guys in here that I've staked my claim on. They're my guys in quotation marks. Tyler Johnson and Darnell Mooney. They are both the guys that I feel like I am probably higher on than most. So Darnell Mooney out of Tulane. You're probably wondering who the hell is that. Well, first off, he's getting like 4th round projections in terms of like NFL draft talk. He's pretty small. I gotta find his size. Yeah, 5'10", 176. So kind of like how I said Hamler plays out of his size. Mooney plays completely out of his size. He's up there going and grabbing one-handed jump balls. He's making these unreal catches that you wouldn't think a 5'10", 176-pound receiver could do. He played all over Tulane's offense because it was Tulane. He couldn't like stick to just the slot, but he would probably play the slot come the NFL. He ran a 4.38 40, which is the 96th percentile. So, he's just fast. He's gonna play the slot, and he plays out of his size. He had a 20% target share all 4 seasons at Tulane, which when we talk about like smaller school receivers, you might think they had one really good year, maybe they pop off, but he did it for 4 years, holding above a 20% target share. So I don't want to say that means he's going to be good in the NFL, but he can obviously like hold his own right in terms of being a receiver. He's just a really fun player to watch with the ball in his hands, I think. And the part that I think drew me into him was he's drawing NFL hype. So it's not like a shot in the dark, like 7th round pick. I think some team will like him a lot. And then Tyler Johnson's the other guy. I mean, for some reason, having a bad attitude makes you not a good football player, I guess. So I don't know.
Does Antonio Brown subscribe to that?
It's humble pie, bro. Humble pie tastes like shit.
Like, it's dumb, but it's not dumb, but it is dumb. But like, okay, Tyler Johnson, if you're talking about just the physicality and complete dominance of a wide receiver, like he is the resemblance of that. So he played the slot mainly at Minnesota in sort of their breakout year. He did it for multiple years, but this year kind of stuck out. Him and Rashad Bateman played the outside. It's kind of weird because I think of him as Evans and I think of Bateman as Godwin, but they played like opposite roles for Minnesota last year. But Tyler Johnson on the line of scrimmage, like just getting open in terms of the slot, it's so like textbook. Just shifty, uses his hands. He just gets open with his hands mainly than his speed. He to give a little backstory, did not get invited to the Senior Bowl. He is a senior. He got invited to the Shrine Game or something like that, something lower tier. Sat out, said he was prepping for the Combine. He's going to go train, get ready for the Combine. And then he did not run at the Combine. Said, wait till the pro day, I'm going to run. And then obviously we had pro days. We didn't have actual pro days. So he's kind of in the boat where like he might not even get drafted, but he's definitely the talent to go like round 3. I don't want to say round 1, but he's good. He's just as good as the guys like Higgins and Pittman and Mims are. Every single analytics box you can check off. I think he had a sub 20 breakout age, 57% college dominator, which is like the 99th percentile. So I really like him. If he doesn't get drafted in the top 6 rounds, I'm not gonna like him. Post NFL draft rankings. So those are my I guess deeper guys, but not really.
Riff.
I love Mooney, man. I love Tulane. People don't realize this. Will Hawley, offensive coordinator in his second season at Tulane, was up for so many Power 5 offensive coordinating. Oregon Oregon talked with him before they took the Boston College dude as their offensive coordinator. They offered this guy stayed at Tulane. He had opportunities, and he's staying at Tulane because he's that legit. And I think that Mooney is a great example of just what Tulane's. I know this is nowhere near what the viewership is looking for, but Mooney's legit. Mooney's legit. He was under the right guidance the last 2 years at Tulane. This guy's legit. I'm excited to see what he could do in the NFL. I'm glad you touched on him. Okay, so my 2 outside of Tyler Johnson and Darnell Mooney, Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State University, and Antonio Gandy Golden out of Liberty University, the best worst school in the entire country. Sure. Liberty is insane, man. So this school joined the FBS in 2017. The first season that they were bowl eligible this year, They made it, and they won the first ever bowl game in program history. Shout out to Hugh Freeze, the head coach at Liberty. That's why they're the best. They're the worst because they were the only school in the country to keep their campus open when the federal stay-at-home orders went into effect, in the third week of March. Students, there's 4,000 students on campus at Liberty University. Their president is going against every medical professional's recommendation. It was a whole thing. So for that reason, Liberty, you're the worst. But we're not here to talk about that. Go Flames, man. Yeah, so this guy, Antonio Gandy Golden, one of the nicest names in the draft. He's tall, he's powerful. And when I say he's tall, he's 6'4", 223. He's a tall boy. He's not overpowering with his weight, but he has a very large catch radius. Liberty does a very good job playing teams who are actually decent as an FBS independent, basically. Look at their schedule next year. I think they open up against Virginia Tech. But anyways, this guy's legit. He was a lot of fun to watch this past year. The only big critique, besides the fact that he went to Liberty, was his yards after catch. He doesn't really have the separation ability that you would want, but he's also really big, so he's not really meant to have that separation ability. He's meant to be the jump ball guy. So I think he could be a red zone threat for a lot of teams. Again, 6'4", he's going to be taller than most defensive backs. If you're playing, cover 2 in the red zone and he gets in one-on-one matchup on the outside with some guy who's 6'2", he's probably going to be able to overpower that guy. So I like Antonio Gandy Golden a lot. Where do I see him? That 4th, 5th round. He could even. I've seen some high 3rd round grades, but I don't know if he's going to be that high. But I think that it would be a lot of fun to see him in Indianapolis or the Rams. It would be really fun to see him with LA Rams. Or even a team like San Francisco if they decide to go late on a wide receiver. Like we were talking about Michael Pittman Jr. This guy is just like him, but a little bit lesser. But again, just a good compliment to Godwin and the speed that the 49ers have. And then Isaiah Hodgins. This guy's a baller. We keep talking about are these guys good just because they have Tua Tagovailoa or because they have Jalen Hurts or because they have Justin Herbert. This guy is good in spite of his quarterback. Jake Luton was a bad quarterback. People are saying he's going to be an NFL quarterback. Those people are freaking crazy, man. Oregon State's going to have a better quarterback next year in Ben Gulbranson. But Isaiah Hodgins, again, in spite of the quarterback situation, in spite of the worst offensive line in the Pac-12 and one of the worst offensive lines in the nation. This guy put up big numbers, 86 for 11, 71, 13 touchdowns. And in the games that mattered, Oklahoma State, where they lost, 170 yards receiving 2 touchdowns. Against Washington, he had a bad game. He actually got hurt, came back the next week, put up 93 yards and a touchdown against Arizona State. Against Cal, 36 yards only, but that secondary is insane. Got the touchdown. Again, he's the red zone target that you want. This guy produced for a team that couldn't get any production, and I see him as a 4th round pick, and he's going to be a great wide receiver no matter where he goes.
I'm liking Colin Johnson. We mentioned earlier that he was kind of taken over by Devin Duvernay overall, but I like him there in Texas. Donovan Peoples-Jones is my dog too. I've been a Michigan fan since I was a kid for some reason. Again, I'm from California. I have no zero ties to Michigan. But when I was a kid were the Tom Brady days. And kind of grew up in that late 90s, Peyton Manning on Tennessee kind of a thing. And I just liked him. My dream when I was in 5th grade, I wrote a book report on what I want to be when I grew up. And it was a college football player at Michigan. But that didn't pan out.
You dodged a bullet though, so it's okay.
Anyway, I'm a Michigan fan for some reason. They're my non Pac-12 team that I root for. So I like those guys quite a bit. Riff, you named off a handful of landing spots for them, but let's rally it off here formally, just in case we actually land any of these picks. We can come back and tell the audience we told you so. Lukas, we'll start with you though, really quick. Why don't you run down the list? It's a lot of names to rank, and these guys are kind of deeper, so not necessarily worried about itemizing these players necessarily, but maybe just run down the list quick and see where you think they would be a good landing spot.
Yeah, so Tyler Johnson, I'm actually this is the one that I want to happen. The Vikings, he would not have to go anywhere. Here's the thing, the Vikings need a receiver. but they lost every single starting cornerback. They don't have any good linebackers, and their O-line sucks. Like, everyone just wants to mock in receiver just because, okay, here's how that works. They're like, oh, they don't have a receiver. Now they need one. Like, I'm not saying that's not the case with the Niners, but, like, it kind of is. Like, you got to look at, like, the depth chart and the contracts. There's more to it than just, like, having a need there. I think he would just – I mean, like, look at Thielen. Thielen was he tried out for the team, and now he's a starting receiver. Get a guy in the 6th round that's being undervalued because of his freaking attitude. Let him go ball out against the corners there and just kind of take on the wide receiver one that he can be. So I really like that spot there. AGG, Gandy Golden, literally any team, just because he's a jump ball receiver. Like, I don't think it's going to matter where he lands. No one's drafting him to be their wide receiver one after the catch, 10-plus target guy. I'm trying to think of, like, a comp for, like, kind of like Eric Ebron. Not that he's a tight end, but, like, they use Eric Ebron. They just throw the ball up to him in the end zone, and it would work. Mooney, I think the Cowboys is one that I like just because they need a slot receiver, and I think he's going to be a slot nightmare in the NFL. Like, no linebacker is going to be able to cover him just because he plays out of his size and he can run. Hodgins, I didn't really touch on him, but he has the best hands in this class. I think that's like the thing you notice with him. So I think really any team would work. Like, the Niners would be kind of fun. Just as like that's when I think of Sanders, obviously I think of like just a good receiver, but like he's just reliable to me, so I think the Niners would be fun. Colin Johnson, I don't know. DPJ, the thing with him is he plays a lot of special teams too. So I think like the two comps would be like the Broncos or Saints, just because the Broncos like to use like Sanders on punt returns, just kind of have like the versatile guy. Trying to think who else. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other receivers maybe that we missed or like long shot guys, but I think the Tyler Johnson to Minnesota is like the one long shot like landing spot that I really like.
And that did work out, obviously, with Adam Thielen there being a hometown kid and them taking a shot there. So I like that. Jonathan, you did run down a handful of these guys already, but if we could just blaze back through your list here and see where you think these guys will be maybe productive landing spots for them. I got you on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, we got the bird going in the background. I realized that. I appreciate
no worries.
The heads up. Yeah. So Tyler Johnson, I like the Minnesota comp, or not comp. I like the Minnesota pick. I like the idea of him staying in Minnesota as well. Antonio Gandy Golden, AGG, the boy, give him to everybody. I love that. I would love to see him. My ex-girlfriend's a big Baltimore Ravens fan, so I don't love the Ravens now. But I would love to see this dude on the Ravens. That team, because they're so explosive and they move the ball so quickly now. Like, you get into the red zone, you get within like the 10-yard line, you get the defense off balance. You just throw fade to this guy, and like it's gonna be a touchdown. Like, you have Hollywood Brown on one side, whoever you want to put anywhere else, puzzle pieces, and then you have this one guy in the back of the end zone who's gonna be bigger than everybody. I'd love to see, and especially with Lamar, like, they're gonna have to spy Lamar, which means this guy will likely be in man-on-man coverage. If he's in man-on-man coverage, good luck. So Baltimore will be a fun landing spot for him. Mooney, I like Dallas. I think Pittsburgh is another viable option. Let's see. Donovan Peoples-Jones. You touched on him. I'm just not a big I'm not a big Michigan guy. But he's cool. I think it would be cool to see him on Detroit. Just another able-bodied receiver. See what happens with their. We know obviously Stafford is going to be there, but we'll see what happens down the line there. Yeah, I think that, and Isaiah Hodgins can go anywhere. Indianapolis would be a really good landing spot. The Rams would be another solid one. The bird is really trying to give some input here. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think we really hit some of these sleepers.
Great. Is there anybody else here in your deeper? I mean, this is a giant list, obviously, of players here. Any other deep name sleeper guys? I mean, every year the draft gets super deep, and as general football fans, we pay attention. Day one, obviously, is a big event. I don't know what the hell they're going to do this year, but it's going to be on every sports channel possible. We're all going to watch every draft of day one, probably day two, maybe round 3. And then 4, 5, 6, you kind of spy on Twitter, you pay attention to your social media, and you get updates that way. But guys always kind of rise up, maybe even UDFAs that come through. Is there anybody else in the scheme that you think could be a name to pay attention to, just in case they land in a place with opportunity?
Tristan Jackson from Syracuse. I think he's coming out a little bit early as a junior. 6'1", 197. He's pretty good. Syracuse offensively is never really that good, but 66 for 1023, 15.5 yards a catch. Phenomenal last year, 11 touchdowns. He's lengthy. He's fast. He's not like explosive. He's not exciting. He's not going to create massive separation in the second level. But I think he's a guy very deep in this draft, like 7th round. He could go to a Buffalo Bills, Indianapolis Colts type team, a team that wants to layer their wide receiving crew already. He's not a guy that you're going to put backing up your X or your Y on the depth chart, but he's a guy who we'll try him out. We'll see how he does, but we want to give him a shot. So that's what I see Tristan Jackson being in the NFL. The
orange, big up. Lukas, anybody a little bit deeper we didn't cover?
There's too many guys to even try. Well, the draft guide will have a lot of later guys, so I guess that's where to look. I think Mooney's the one where I don't even know if he's going to be a later guy now because he's seen the buzz, but he's just going to have a good career, and it's kind of cool to see a two-lane receiver sort of break out like that.
Well, that's a great segue, man. Why don't you let everybody know what is coming up here at the end of the week on Sunday? We've been repping it every podcast for the last couple of weeks, but I really want to make sure people are in tune with all of the hard work that's going into the rookie draft guide. So before we get out of here, Lukas, please once again break down what is coming in on Sunday.
Yep, on Sunday it's our free obviously this part is just the rookie draft guide, but we'll have a full draft guide with rookies, dynasty, redraft. But obviously I'm not going to do that right now because it's only April. But it'll have, like I said, player profilers for the top guys guaranteed, and then we're doing a lot of smaller guys. And if we miss anyone on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we'll get that added. Rankings, like a film series, like maybe how to break down film, what to watch when watching film. I'm trying to think what else we have in there. The hit rates that we've been referencing in our sophomore positional fantasy groups, though all that data you can download from there. We have a write-up graphs. If I'm missing anything else, a couple other articles that are just kind of fun things to do, but that'll all be free. I'll wait to mention the domain until it's fully done on Saturday night or Sunday.
Awesome. Really looking forward to that. There's a lot of work going behind the scenes, not just with the TCK pod crew, but there's a lot of people involved. Shouts out to the commish FFP. Y'all know we got, good family. Actually, here, just happened to have that right there for you. Shouts out to our commish crew and everybody else involved. Lukas, obviously, you have a big team outside of what you and I do. So shouts out to that. Make sure you pay attention to it. And it's free. Folks, we want to make sure you're getting the content and having a good idea of what exactly we're going to be doing with these draft guides come up for the redraft and dynasty purposes later on with the vets. So appreciate that breakdown. Jonathan, before we get out of here, man, please let everybody know where they can find your content and what you're up to as well.
Yeah, check me out. All streaming platforms, even the weird ones like Stitcher. Apparently people use that. So I'm everywhere. Spotify, Apple Pod, TuneIn, like I said, Stitcher, literally everywhere. Believe in the Pac-12 on the Believe Podcast Network with the aforementioned Ryan Leaf, the ESPN college football analyst, who I'm sure would have some clips with some of the takes that I had on this podcast. But who knows? Maybe we'll get him on here for you guys one day. You can also check me out on the NFHS Sports Network, where I do all my play-by-play stuff. And then, we're working on some YouTube Live stuff during the quarantine, and we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted, all the TCK potters out there, because hopefully we can get something going that is of value to you as well.
Appreciate you, brother. You're a very, very busy man. We really appreciate you coming on for multiple days here. I mean, this is, we've got a four set segment here. We're going to have you come back really quick for just a quick bare bones reaction to the NFL draft when all of this actually goes down. And eventually we're going to get you on for one of our interviews as well, when we kind of dive behind the football, behind the sports, and get a little bit more in tune there. So Jonathan Rifkind, always a pleasure, my man. Appreciate having you on. For the TCK Potters, of course, please make sure to subscribe and comment right here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you share out that link as we're growing the brand here on the new YouTube page. Make sure to leave a rate and review on our podcast as well. Find us on Instagram, where we do most of our content. That's at fantasyfootball_TCK pod. On Twitter as well, that we're building, TCK_pod. And you can find a lot of our information right now kind of in construction over the summer, but a lot of our information, our rankings, lots of articles, everything else going down at tckpod.com. tckpod.com will be building throughout the spring and the summer, getting in ready for the NFL draft, and then eventually with the redraft and the dynasty as well. So appreciate you hanging out for a longer episode with the wide receivers. We just had the quarterbacks and the running backs. Make sure you tune back into those if you haven't heard them already. Tight ends coming up tomorrow, and tomorrow is the NFL draft, the teledraft. I'm excited about that, and we'll get into it a little bit more tomorrow with the tight ends. But until next time, for Jonathan Rifkind and Lukas Kaser, I am your host, Sky Guasco, and we are out of here.